What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. This is Darian with Darian the Dev. One sec. I'm just checking real quick. Make sure the audio and everything is good in the stream. This is Darian with Darian the Dev. Let me see here. Looks like I need to just update the title. I think it put the same excuse me, I think it put the same title on this video as the last one. Yep, it definitely did. Yep, it definitely put the same title from last week on here. But if you guys are new to the channel, we talk about everything from tech, entrepreneurship, coding, and startups on this channel. And you guys are actually tuned in right now to a weekly live stream where myself and some other professional software developers, we go over our career progression curriculum, basically. So what we do throughout a given week to pretty much just get better as developers and improve our understanding of computer science. So in just a moment, I'm going to be calling in the other guests, and then we can go ahead and get started. Make sure you guys leave any comments or anything you have in the comments, and we'll be sure to discuss anything you guys have questions on. Okay, cool. So we got the title updated. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the content that we got coming in today. So I'm gonna go ahead and call the other guests in really quickly.
Yeah, what's the word?
What's going on, La?
I'm trying to call you. You calling me on Skype right now?
Was that? Yeah, yep. Yeah, we're on the stream.
Oh, that's what's up then. That works. All right, that works. I was trying to call you. I couldn't get you. This works even better. Great.
Okay, cool.
While I'm doing this, I'm gonna send you the notes at the same time while we're doing this.
All right, that's perfect. So I guess it's only right to kind of start the stream off just saying rest in peace, Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, man. Sheesh. Yeah, man.
I think that's unreal. 41 helicopter crashed.
Sheesh. Like, I don't know. It sends out a different appreciation for life, man. Like, yo, LeBron just passed his record last night. He just tweeted out to LeBron, congrats, man. And he has 4 kids. Oh, my goodness.
I mean, not to mention, I feel like his life was really just getting started outside of basketball, if you think about it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, he was getting into, he had a venture fund. He was like doing a lot of VC funding stuff.
Yeah.
He was just finding himself outside of basketball, which, you know, is for a lot of people, when that's all you do your whole life, that's a whole phase and process, like finding who you are outside that game. So that's crazy that like he hasn't been out of basketball that long, and just to see how something crazy like that could happen is just, that's unreal.
Yeah.
Okay. On my notes. So my notes for today, I kind of trimmed them down a little bit. So I want to see how long it's going to take me to get through Azure Functions and the serverless programming concepts. And then from there, I do have some design pattern stuff in my slides, but I don't know if I want to show it because I think it's pretty basic so far. I think I should take another week to like do the same type of format. So you just give me feedback on this like slideshow format, and then if you like this, then I think next week I'll just get more content from my design pattern stuff and just present it like this, because I think this might be better. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, and then we can go ahead and get started. So do that right there. Okay, so are you also watching from YouTube, La?
I'm trying to go on YouTube as we speak right now. I gotta type it in. You sent to my phone, so I gotta try to type it in from my phone right now. So I'm trying to type it in as we speak.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure that the slides are showing.
All right, so give me 2 seconds. And I should let you know.
All right, perfect. How was the flight back?
It was pretty straight. No problems. Really quick. Got home. Sad to be home.
Yeah. How many hours?
6 hours. I had a layover, so like 6.5.
Yeah. I was about to say yes. Yeah.
All right. I mean, how can I get your site? All right, we gotta figure out another way you can send me this link. So I can get it on. Oh no, maybe I can forward it. Maybe I can forward it to my Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, hold on. Let me see. I'm trying to see if I can forward it to my share to my Slack, and I might be able to get it from there. Share. Let me go back. Share on my Skype. I'm gonna share with Slack. Share with me. Blah. Where am I? Here I go. Send. Alright, so let's see now. I'm gonna go back to my Skype. Alright, so let's go to Slack now. All these different technologies.
Alright, so we're not, my screen is not sharing right now. So let me go ahead and do that really quick. What's up, Clark? I saw your comment, man. I'm gonna come right back to you in 1 sec. I'm just trying to get my screens all situated over here. So I want to do live demo mode. There we go. Turn on live demo. Much better. Now I think we should be able to see my slides.
No, I don't see it.
On YouTube.
On YouTube. I'm on your YouTube channel now. I should subscribe to you. I see me, so I can see it. I see something.
Okay. You don't see the slide?
Yep.
You see it? Okay.
Yep, I see him.
All right. Let me just make sure. I got a lag on my There we go. Okay, perfect. Boom. All right, so Azure Functions. So the reason why I wanted to trim my my notes back was because I feel like this is so, like, it's cool, but I feel like it's important to just kind of like go through this. I didn't want to rush through this because it's not new. It's not. I mean, it is new, but the concepts that, like, anybody who's familiar with programming, you will recognize the concepts. It's not really anything that crazy, but I just wanted to make sure that we go through it slowly, so that for anybody who's not familiar with like serverless programming or cloud development, you'll see how similar it is to just, I guess, standard development. So Azure Function is just basically made up of two things. It's made up an event trigger and obviously code for the function, and it's known as FAS. So function as a service. I'm pretty sure that's like a newer business model, or I think it came out in 2014. So it's like a new thing that you can actually have a function as a service pricing model as a business. And it's basically a small piece of code in any language that runs in response to an event or a trigger. So those words can be synonymous, and you can use these, even though it's like Azure is a Microsoft product or a Microsoft suite. It's definitely extensible for like JavaScript, Node. I want to say Java, C#. There's like F# and stuff like that, but there's some that aren't supported, like Ruby, I think Go, or if they are supported, they're still in like the preview version. So you guys have to look more into that if you develop in those languages. But they do have like a lot of languages you can use Azure Functions with, so it's not something you have to have you don't have to have a Microsoft computer or be using C# or Visual Studio to necessarily be using Azure Functions. So that's one thing I like about it. And then all your functions come together to make up one function app. So the way you could think of like a project in whatever language you have, you might have like a bunch of files inside of a project. All in this case, your files would be your functions, and then those functions collectively would make up your function app. That's what it's called. So it's really just a cloud-based API. So next, I thought this was pretty cool that Microsoft had this, and I figured this will probably be the best way to be able to explain. So we're just gonna walk through this. So if you go to tryfunctions.com, I think /try, and then it'll redirect you to this page. This is like a free, almost like playground that you can test out Azure Functions with, and it's cool because it's only good for 1 hour. So I mean, you could always just open it like in a incognito window or something like that. But for the most part, you can only use it for an hour. But it gives you a good way of just playing around and kind of understanding like what you can kind of do with this. I think we're gonna be limited in terms of features, like what we can do in this little trial. But we'll be able to at least get the point. So, wait for this to load. All right, so you can see my timer started. I have an hour to pretty much play around with my function app. But this is an example of a function app right here. So this is like the structure of it over here on the left side. You can see underneath functions, you'll have all your functions underneath here. So let's see. This is in JavaScript. So that's fine. I'm not gonna do anything to this. I just wanna show you guys like what we can do with it. So if we go to integrate right here, we look at triggers. We can right now this is a HTTP function, so this will respond to a HTTP request. But we can go to inputs, and we could trigger this same function based on a lot of different things happening. So I haven't explored all these, but these are just the input options, as you guys can see. So we can go from like a Cosmos DB database. So basically we can trigger this function to get called if something gets inserted or something happens in a Cosmos DB database. We can do blob storage, so we can store like documents, files, whatever into blob storage if we wanted to. And if something was to get inserted into the blob storage, we could trigger the function. So I guess we can do something based on Excel tables, which is cool. I haven't played around with that, all tokens. So there's all these different things that we can do in terms of inputs to trigger it. And then for outputs, we can do a lot of sweet stuff too. So we can make the output of the function a HTTP request, and then we can call another function. So that's how we set up like a service. We can just have a bunch of functions running and calling each other based on different things happening. We can do Twilio integration, which is really dope because this allows us to send like text messages and stuff. So we could call the function based on like some HTTP request, and then we can send out a text message or emails using SendGrid. So this is a bunch of cool options that are literally just push of a button. So once you learn how to use this UI, like you're pretty much in the game. There's no real like crazy setup or anything like that. So let's see. So under manage, let's see what we have. Okay. So yeah. All right, so this example of me being limited right now, I can't show you guys this stuff. I have to sign up for an account. So let's just see how much stuff I can show you inside this free. I know I can. I want to just get the URL basically, and here we go. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm just gonna grab this URL. If it'll let me, or is it really gonna? Alright, so for the sake of this demo, I'm gonna try to go ahead and create this account because I want y'all to be able to get the point of how this goes.
Sorry, guys.
Alright, let me see. Alright, sorry y'all, quick account creation delay. Give me 1 sec. Alright. Save password. Good, bruh. Oh, jeez. Sorry, guys. I promise I'm trying to speed through this as quickly as possible. Verify. 4970. I don't want your emails. Oh, jeez. Come on. How secure do we have to get here to create this account, guys? Alright. Okay, so that should give us our free account, and now I should be able to go back and do this demo for y'all, or finish this demo for y'all. Let's see if it's gonna make me go through some more steps. It looks like it is. I have to sign up for Azure too. Or can I just go back over here? Can I just refresh my page? Oh man, my computer runs so slow when I have the live stream going, and oh man, this is so much. I gotta do all this. There's no way. Alright, hold on. Refresh the page. Go to see, manage. No, what was it? Function. Where's that at for that URL again? This is not it. Integrate. That's not it. Is it monitor? No. It's up here. There we go. Alright, so I'm just gonna type out this URL. Sorry that was such a long delay and it didn't end up panning out, but let's see. Oyster catcher D5 C9 dot Azure websites .net. Alright, cool. So I'm gonna grab this link, and if we go back to the Azure function, we'll look and see like what the function should be doing. Right, so we should pass it a name, and it's just gonna say hello, whatever the name is. Alright, so it's a pretty simple function. That's all it's gonna do. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna attempt to fire up Postman with all this other stuff I got running on my computer real quick. And then we should be able to hit that endpoint, and I just want to show you guys the concept of the Azure Functions and how it is set up to work. And then that way, I feel like once you from here, I just want you guys to be able to have a good enough understanding to be able to go and do further research after this stream and be able to kind of get up and running, maybe integrate it into your own project. That's what I like about it. You'll see in the rest of the slide deck, but you don't have to completely stop how you are already writing your application to incorporate Azure Functions. You can just break out a certain part of your app or a certain feature or whatever, a certain piece of your business logic. You can break it into Azure Functions. You don't have to completely like overhaul your whole backend and make it Azure Functions. You don't have to go completely serverless. We'll get into that too. All right, so basically if we go, so if we make a request here, let's go back one more time and just double check our here, triggered by a get or a post request. So I can post with the name in the header. So we'll go to post, we'll go to our headers, and we'll add a key of name, and I'll put Darian right there, and then we'll go ahead and send this post request. And you can see it says our Azure Function app is up and running. I got a 200 response, so let's go over here. Let's see. So we got a 200. I don't know. That's not what we want to see. We just want to. Okay, so all right. So this is a preview of it. Let me see. So let me see. Body plus name. So all right, what happens if we just do a get request? Authorization. Yeah, okay. I'm not gonna waste too much time here. Alright, so you can see we're getting a 200 response code here. I don't have an account, or at least on this like free 1 hour Azure Function trial. I don't know this link to my account that I'm logged into right now, but you can see that we just created this URL. I just grabbed this from Azure, the Azure portal over here. So as you can see, that URL came from right here, and that is giving us access to the functions in this function app. So basically, you can go in here, you can write your functions. You can, let's go back to the code. So you can write your functions. This is a JavaScript example, but you can write them in C#, whatever supported languages you want to, and then you can call them individually. You can have them connected to each other by basically just stringing together HTTP calls. You can do a lot of stuff. You can create your own services with this. And again, like this is the serverless example. So we're actually developing this directly in the Azure portal. But like I said, you don't have to completely do that. So if we go back here, you'll see in a sec that you don't have to always do the development how we just saw it there. That's just one way of doing it. I just wanted to show you guys an example. So hopefully that doesn't make it more confusing. So let me get rid of Postman so I can just hopefully prevent any lagging going on in the stream. All right, so we looked at an example of HTTP request triggers. So we hit it with a request and then the function runs. But there's other ways we can trigger our function. So we can do timers where we can have it run every 5 minutes, every hour, once a day. So that could be something like sending out an email or evaluating some data in a database. You can run this function periodically based on a time, and it's very easy to do. Like how you guys saw, we set up the HTTP request and everything in the UI. You can do the same thing with a timer. You can just go in there, pick a timer, and then you can just set whatever interval you want the function to run on. So it's all super easy once you get familiar with that UI. You can do queue messages. So again, I'm getting more familiar with this stuff, but they have a queue in the Azure Functions that allows you to add tasks into a queue, and these things will get executed one by one as they go into the queue. But you can also trigger different things to happen based on things going into the queue, new items being added into the queue. So queue messages is one. Blob storage is another thing. So like I said, blob storage and the Cosmos DB are both ways that if something was to get updated or something was to get inserted into blob storage or our database, our cloud database in Cosmos DB, which is really all it is, it's a NoSQL cloud database for Azure. Anything that gets uploaded or inserted into any of these, you could trigger an Azure function to get called. So these are not all the trigger types either. I'm just going over like introductory high level stuff. I want you guys to get an understanding, but understand there's a lot more things that you could trigger your function to be called on than just these 5. And again, they're all just plug and play right there in the portal. You just use the UI, set it up. It's pretty straightforward. All right, so what are the best use cases for Azure Functions? When would you want to use them? So from what I've been reading and studying and the examples I've been seeing, it looks like experiments and prototyping, they're really good for it because you don't have to worry about setting up a whole project. So you guys could see, even though, my demo, we didn't get the hello name thing back, but you guys saw that we got a successful 200 requests to that URL. And all I did was literally go on to tryfunctions.com and start the free trial for 1 hour. And then I immediately had access to all the functions in my function app. So you don't have to worry about setting up an entire new project or a new server or anything like that to add additional functionality to an application or try something out, experiment. And you also don't have to worry about incorporating any new dependencies or potential like pitfalls into your own application by bringing in new stuff and possibly breaking things that were already working in your application. This gives you like a nice clean way of doing something completely in isolation and really quickly too. and it's really easy with the UI once you get the hang of it. So automating the development process. So setting up pipelines is really easy. So we talked about how we can have sequences of things going on based on different triggers. So one HTTP request can trigger one function, which could then output another HTTP request to another function, which does something else. So in that way, we can chain these functions together and create basically pipelines and all types of stuff. So it's really good for that. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about kind of the first time, but decomposing an extended monolithic application, so we can break out specific parts of our app functionality, or we can extend or build on top of an app that we already have that is unit tested. It's already working, it's fine. We can go add additional stuff without taking the risk on breaking that application. We can integrate other systems. So like we talked about Twilio and SendGrid, we can do like email integration or text message integration into our apps very easily by just simply adding Azure function that gets called from within our application that then sends out that text message or that email. So that's really cool. And again, it's really, really quick and simple to do. And it gives us the ability to incorporate serverless architecture into our application. So going back to what we were saying earlier, it's not all or nothing. So if you wanted to, you could also use your favorite IDE and you could create a function app locally on your machine using your own servers. So you could be using VS Code or Visual Studio and set your own project up. Configure everything, everything we didn't have to do basically in that Azure portal, you could do it all locally and test and do everything that way, and then just deploy that project as a function app to the cloud and then access it from there. So there's different ways to do it, but it's not all or nothing. It gives you the ability to do serverless architecture, but you don't have to do it, which is exactly what this slide is covering actually, so we won't even spend too much time on it. So authorization. So how do we decide who has access to our function, right? So like how you guys just saw me go on to tryfunctions.com/try, set up an account, and then I immediately just grabbed that URL, went over to Postman, and just made the call and got a 200 response code. I think these are the main three ways that we can kind of structure authorization for our routes. So anonymous means that basically what you guys just saw me do, anybody from any with no credentials, basically making any request to our API, basically can get a response back. So what you guys just saw was an example of anonymous because I didn't have an account connected to that, so I didn't have the ability to go in and actually tweak the authorization like rules for each call. There's a function authorization, which is all done and handled by Azure. So this is not anything special that you have to do other than just going into that particular function and in the settings, just say you wanted to have function authorization. But then what Azure does is supplies a unique ID for that individual function. And that ID has to get passed with every call in order for the function to be invoked. So it can either get called through the query string or through HTTP headers, but without that unique ID for that particular function, it won't get invoked and you'll get some sort of error message. So this is really good for security and just having control over, how much load gets put on our API. And then we can go a step further and we can do admin authorization, which is a secret code for the entire function app that will be unique. And then we can group a bunch of HTTP triggered functions together into one function app and basically create a cloud API. And then that way, when our users are requesting or making requests to our API, from their end, they don't have to change the ID, the secret ID, that unique ID we talked about from the function authorization. They don't have to have a unique ID for every single function that they call within that function app. If we do the administrative authorization, they can just have one specific and unique ID for that whole function app, and then they can continue to call any functions within that app. So I just think it's really cool how out of the box, without having to worry about any of the logic that handles how all this happens behind the scenes, Azure gives us access to a lot of security features and stuff like that for our serverless APIs. which is great. And then going to design patterns, but I'm gonna actually stop there because, like I said, I wanted to really give hopefully a good introduction to Azure Functions and like cloud development, cloud computing, and yeah, and just kind of get some feedback on that line and kind of like what you think. If anybody has any questions too in the comments, I'll check those out as well. But yeah, I think I'll stop.
I thought it was pretty dope, Darian. I mean, when I get to my opportunity to talk about it, what's interesting is that I know we talked about it a little bit, but my project I worked on this week, I was working on Firebase, and I didn't realize until you started explaining Microsoft Azure how close. I guess it's pretty much the same thing, but from a Google standpoint, that I was sort of doing the same thing you were doing. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and another thing, let me stop my demo real quick, my screen share. Another thing too for anybody out there, there's also another equivalent of this in AWS. If you're using AWS instead of Azure, there's also AWS Lambda is basically the equivalent of Azure Functions. So I'm not going to say that it works in the exact same way as the Azure Functions do, because I haven't played around with it myself. But what I can say is that it definitely serves the exact same purpose. You have pretty much similar, maybe even different features that you can use on AWS Lambda. But I know the services themselves are basically the same purpose, just Amazon and Microsoft. So if you guys want to look more into serverless APIs and cloud development, you can definitely check out Azure Functions or look more into AWS Lambda. Yeah. So that's my stuff for this week, y'all. Laj, you already sent me. Did you already send me your stuff, your notes? I can't hear you.
I shared with you collaboration.
Okay.
GitHub.
Is it my email? By email?
Well, I guess the GitHub thing comes through email maybe. I collaborated with you on one of my projects. I figured that I'll go through some of the code on that project. Cause that's pretty much what I've been working on this last week and a half. Aside from reading, I've been reading operating systems, a lot of information about that. But like I told you before, I think they're all in just raw notes. So I prefer to sort of put them in a PowerPoint slide. And then I get started next week. I'll start to present some of that reading that I'm doing through PowerPoint as opposed to just giving you like a list of information.
Sweet.
So for right now, I just go through some of the code from this project. So this project, I can't show you what the project looks like because, of course, it's proprietary. Right. But I can show you some of the code and talk through the code. And I guess the point of doing that is two things. One, talk about my serverless stuff that I did. And two, this is just a React code base where I was trying to use functional programming to do it the proper way, design patterns, and just talk about some of the refactoring things I have to do and some of the things I sort of get stuck with the logic and things like that.
Cool. You said functional? You had to do functional programming for this one?
Yeah, well, JavaScript is a functional programming language. So the idea is to use it. Use JavaScript in its best form would be to use it functionally. So that's why when in React, they talk a lot about copying over objects as opposed to mutating the object initially. So I tried to stick to all those rules when I was doing this and making sure that everything was in that format. But in the process of doing that, I don't think that my solid principles upheld, meaning that there's a lot of repetitive code. To me, I feel like there's a lot of functions that if I wrote an interface where I was just able to change the function based on or override certain things based on the type of object I was using with, I wouldn't have to rewrite so much code. So I definitely think that this is a project that as I learn more, I'm going to want to go back and refactor this code to make this code a lot more solid.
So is this the same app that was? It's not the quiz app, is it? It's
a touchscreen app. The touchscreen one.
Yeah. I for whatever reason I thought they had you. Like, I thought that one was due like last week.
So it was due, but this week when I was in Arizona with work, this is where we showed the app. So the users were supposed to use the app this week while I was there at work, doing this event. They didn't use it though, but that was the purpose.
I got you. So you shared it with me on GitHub.
I shared you the repository. So you should be looking to get into the repository. I added you as a collaborator.
Okay.
I just did it like maybe when we first started our conversation, so it should be very, very recent.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking. I'm gonna check my other email.
Yeah, it's not your who said. It got to be the
Yep. That's what I was just thinking. All right, cool. Cool. So give me just a sec, y'all. I'm just pulling up her code, and then I'll flip my screen back over, and then I'll let her take it away. It's cool so was this so clearly, I mean, this was kind of just coincidental that you were doing serverless stuff this week, and then I ended up spending so much time doing Azure stuff this week at work, huh?
Yeah, I think it's sort of like, as me being a new junior to this situation, I think I was familiar with Firebase from a hackathon I had done before. And this particular project, when I was given the requirements, it was told to me that this project was a one-time use. That's it. We're not going to use this code again. We're going to throw it away. We're not going to literally throw it away, but we're not going to ever use this code, this again. So my thing was, why waste my time building out a back end if I can just host it on Firebase, and if I needed to store any data, I could just easily store it in that NoSQL option on Firebase. That was why I chose this route as opposed to like Heroku or AWS. AWS is a lot more complicated for me at this point. So I have to, Firebase I just was more familiar with, so I decided to use that. And I guess where I got into the serverless part was because at one point my app does collect data, and the stakeholders wanted a copy of the data of the participants. So I would need to give them a link that would export all the data using a CSV. And that's where it came to Firebase has Firebase functions. So I was going to use a Firebase function to do it, but with the Firebase function, so I had an option. I could have used the Firebase function like you spoke about, where I would have done all that stuff that you talked about, and it would have just been a link to link me right to that export that CSV form. Or I could have done it the traditional way, where I could have just wrote it out in React to make the CSV and just imported the data over by data dump through Firebase. I was going to do the data dump that way only because Firebase functions, I found out, it costs money. So right now I'm on a free plan because we weren't going to, got to think about it fiscally too, because this app wasn't going to be used multiple times. There was no point at my company spending all this money to maintain this app. So we used the Firebase free plan because I knew for a fact we weren't going to ever write or read more than 50,000 lines. So we would have been fine. We would have been within a range. However, if I wanted to use the Firebase functions, now I had to increase and get a plan and spend more money. So it would have been a catch-22. So I would have to go back to just doing it the regular way. So that's why I didn't do it.
Oh, wow. Okay. I just downloaded your repository. I'm about to just unzip it real quick and then fire up Visual Studio and then flip my screen and then let you take it away.
No worries.
What was that file called? It was called Touchscreen Master. Alright, bada bing, and I want to open let's go to VS Code. So so what's your thoughts? What was your thoughts on that Firebase functions when you first came across it?
I didn't really have too much thoughts on it. So it seemed pretty simple. I would have had to figure out more how to use it, just get more familiar with the Firebase system itself and how to use it. But I thought it was pretty straightforward. It would have definitely solved my problem. It would have been very quick. It wouldn't have cost a lot of effort on me as a developer to do it. But I can't speak for the fiscal responsibility of it. I can't speak to how much it would cost in comparison to not doing that way. I just know as far as the manual labor part of it, it was much easier than going through the whole process of writing all the other code.
Right. Yeah, I know there's at least on Azure, there's a pricing model where it's like consumption based, and you get like an insane amount of calls before they like you actually get charged. So I don't know how Firebase and AWS Lambda work, but it seems like, you know, assuming you're not dropping like a huge project, like a huge enterprise level software that a bunch of people are going to be using all the time, like, seems like it could be pretty feasible. But then there's also like other pricing models too, where because if you do that, then it also leaves the door open. I can't hear you. I don't know if you're talking to me.
No, I'm not speaking.
Oh, okay. It leaves the door open to like a fluctuating bill every month. You know what I mean? Even though you might not get charged up front, if you happen to get a random spike of usage, it could just shoot up. So there's other ways you can like you can keep it like a flat rate, but then of course, you know, then you got to worry about your user experience and yada yada yada. But okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you here. Alright, so I have your project up, and you can walk me through. I'm gonna bring it over 1 sec. You probably can't see it yet.
No worries.
Alright, there we go. So in just a second, you'll probably be able to see it.
Perfecto. All right, so we can start from the bottom. I'm not going to go through everything in detail, but we'll just, you know, keep the structure so people are aware of what's going on. So this is like a one-time use app. It's more of a front-end app. There's no active back end to it. The back end that I chose to use is Firebase, so it's serverless. And the app was just pretty much a PowerPoint slide, and I just need to put the PowerPoint slides on, I guess, on the screen and allow people to interact with them. So we'll sort of walk through that a little bit more. But the first one is the README. I guess, as you know, I spoke before, I'm a junior. I'm continuing to learn and develop as a developer, and I feel like communication is very important. So for me, it's very important. The job that I work at currently is not a lot of documentation, so we have to sort of figure things out on our own a lot. So for me, I like to try to, you know, do better than the last. So my goal is to make sure that I document what I do. So I mean, may not be the correct way to document. As I become better, I'll make the adjustments I need. But I definitely put the title of it at the top, and then I put on how to start the application so that whoever uses it know how to start it. The endpoints, I let them know that's the endpoints, because when you initially go to the application, when you load it, it brings you to a error screen because the initial branch isn't open. I didn't make an endpoint for it. Then I put the production line for how you can use it in production. And then I just put the special notes. So pretty much that the app was connected to Firestore to store data, but because people weren't using it and we were going to put this app out of commission, I decided to disconnect that part, disable it, so that if someone in our company decides to see what the app does and they loaded it back up again, they wouldn't be able to continue just to write and add data to it, causing the company money. So I just noted that there, noted where all the information was. So if somebody wanted to be able to access the app or you know, reactivate it, they could. And also I made sure they were aware that I started the export component, but because we didn't need it, I didn't complete it. So that if anybody wanted to come back in it, then that's something they will have to pick up. So move on. We don't need to go to the package JSON stuff. The Firestore, if we go to Firebase JSON, that's just pretty much, I guess, how the information where I let the app know what we're going to be doing in Firebase. So all the different type of the services that Firebase offer, if they were in this app, it would be located on this JSON file. So right now, the JSON file just talks about that we are using a Firestore, which is the database in Firebase, and it has the rules and the indexes that we're going to use, and it lets us know that we're also going to be using a hosting service. So right now, we're using a Firestore and the hosting services off of Firebase. The one up above that, database rules. The rules is not. I didn't write them as perfectly as I should have, because this way I wrote them allows everybody to read and write to our database, which is not a good thing. But again, this is a one-time app. I didn't need to put all that security on it. It's out of commission. We won't use it again, so I didn't bother making all those changes to it. But if I wanted to change it, I would have to put things like authorization rules to prevent other people from using this app who aren't authorized to use the app. So we move to the routes.js file. So this is something too I say that I feel like It may or may not. I could be trying to oversimplify things or over encapsulate my data, but this is just all the roots for my React app. And I don't really like a lot of redundancy, but again, I just don't think there's any other way I probably could have did this that would have made it. I guess, well, what I'm saying to you is that I like to adhere to the drive principles where I don't repeat myself, but at the same time, I don't want to make things so encapsulated that if somebody else comes to read my code, they don't understand what's going on. So with that, I feel like I have to give up something. So this is just a redundant of the routes, and I sort of put my routes here to keep all my stuff separate. I like to keep all my concerns separate when I code. So we'll move to the index, which is nothing there to see. Index CSS, which is nothing there to see. A Firebase JS, which is something to see. This is where you have all your. This is how Firebase is sort of. This is how you import Firebase in your app. So you would do npm install Firebase, of course, and then after that, once you create your Firebase application on Firebase itself, you'll get a configuration file. You put all that configuration here in this the object, the Firebase config object. That's where all that data that came right from Firebase. And then at the top, I just import Firebase from the Firebase app, import Firebase from Firestore. And then at the bottom, you see I sort of initialize Firebase. So I have the comments that I'm initializing Firebase where I can use it and exporting that information out of my out of this file.
Mm-hmm.
So app is nothing to see other than just my routes. This is how my routes are called in an encapsulated way. And we can go to the components, and let's go to screen 1. This is the most. This is one of the files that I definitely feel like I want to read. I want to be able to refactor. So there was a lot going on in this file. So we can move down to the third function, update session.
Is it this one?
Yep. No. And the one underneath that one. That's my data store. That's where I keep all. So right there is where I keep all my data. So that's all because I'm not HTTP and I'm not sitting out for data for my database. I keep all my data in there. That was my data file. So the update session for right here. So this is an example of one of the functions that I want to refactor. This function is really just updating my session, but I feel like it's doing 3 or 4 different things in this one function. And I have to figure out a way to sort of break it out. So what I do in the beginning is I copy all my data to these copied variables. And the copy session variable is copying all the data from the session that you saw in the file before. And the copy female choices, this is to help me manage the images on the front of on my application. So the problem with this is that in this one function, I'm trying to manage the functionality of the app, and I'm also trying to manage the UI. So I have to figure out how to break this down so that I'm managing the UI in one function, and I'm managing what's going on and updating the session in another part of the function. So I have to figure out how to take out the 2 copy male choices and the copy female choices out of the app and put it somewhere else. However, the information I get from that, the update session does need it to eventually update the session. I think a lot of the stuff in React for me, as I'm learning, makes it complicated because if you go to the bottom of that, like the line maybe 79. The thing about these things is that, for React, is every time you save state or you alter state, you are every time you update state or you alter state, you always you have to cause a re-render. And part of the problem with the re-render is that you don't want to, if a user's doing one action on my app, I don't want it to render 15 different times. I only want it to render one time. Although that one action a user could be causing could be impacting 5 different parts of my app, I still only want it to render one time. So that's where I get sort of stuck at, because in this update session, you have the session updating you need to do, and you also have to change the UI with the copy male, copy female choices. And they both have to happen at the same time, but they're 2 different things, you know what I mean? So I have to figure out a way to, even if I do make it 2 separate functions, I have to figure out a way to get all that information back into this function, so I'm only setting state one time to cause one re-render.
Mm-hmm.
So
whereas right now, you're doing what?
I'm doing one re-render right now, but the problem right now is that I'm doing multiple things in this function,
I got you.
In a functional program is supposed to be one thing only being done, and I'm doing 2 different things in this function where I probably need to separate it out to do one thing.
I got you. I got you.
I have a lot of, I don't know if it's acceptable or not. I don't really have a lot of people reading my code over but you. So I guess as we learn, we'll figure out better. And I'm really self-conscious about the fact, too, I have a lot of if statements in this. I have like, if, answer, and name, then there's an if statement within that. Then there's an if statement at the end. So I don't know, at the end of the day, from reading my operating systems and, reading all my books about coding, being a professional coder, they definitely say that at the basic of all coding is just your if statements and your while loops. That's just what coding is. So, part of me understands that, and part of me understands that whatever I do, if statements and while loops are going to be a dominant part of my coding. But I guess for me, without having a type of senior dev to overview it, I just don't know what's too much. You know what I mean? Like, is this too much or is this okay? Is there, was there another way of writing this code? So, yeah. So if we go down to, I guess, all the way down to 133, because I won't hold you guys forever on this code. I mean, going over code is always difficult. But the part that I have hidden out, highlight out, is the part where Firestore sort of saves all my data for me. So the first thing I do, let final data, is I copy all the final data into copy all my data over into that. I have a function called final answer, which takes all the session data in a slide index and it gives back information to the final data. So it updates my final data. So that lets me know. In this, I'm recording information from the user's input. So that final data is all the information that the user actually inputted in those slides. In order for me to create like a created ad or something like that sort of Ruby gives me on its own, or I guess MySQL, you would sort of code that in yourself, I have to personally create a timestamp, and I use it this way so that Firebase will know that, so that I have to create a timestamp so I would know when people are, who sort of, when this data was collected or when the data wasn't collected. And then this Firebase.Firestore collection is the collection that I stored it under, screen 1, and I'm just adding all my information that way through it at the bottom of like I created a timestamp. So it's pretty simple to sort of add data in your database this way. Yeah, pretty simple, pretty easy.
Is it free, the database?
So you get 50,000, I think it's 50,000 writes and something like 10,000 reads. So you get something like that. So that's free until you go over those numbers. Then it becomes more. So what's interesting about that too is I was able to like delete some of it. Like, so example, what I didn't do was I didn't create my pipeline so that I had a production database and a development database. I didn't do that, like I told you, because this was only a one-time usage, so I didn't have to have all those. I didn't have to use all that stuff. But because I didn't do that, when I was testing stuff out in practice, I was getting data in my database that I would need to delete when it goes into production. Which is cool about it was that every time I was deleting the data, my numbers went back down to my writes and my reads. However, they also have this deleted column that has an amount of deleted data you can have. So I'm assuming that whenever one of those columns, write, reads, or delete, gets over the line, they start to then charge you.
Oh, that's crazy. So like deleting it doesn't really give you more.
No. So it gives me a benefit. So say, for instance, like say delete is something like, I can look at it right now, actually. I can look at it and tell you. Let's see. Firebase. All right. Video. Tomorrow. Close. All right, go to console. This right here. All right, so when you go to the database storage, it says something like usage. You get 5,000 reads, 20,000 writes, and 20,000 deletes. And right now, because
5,000 reads, 20,000 writes?
Yep, 20,000 writes and 20,000 deletes. And so remember I told you that yesterday after the event was over, I sort of deleted my entire database. I sort of, I cleaned up my database because the event was over and make it so it was back. So right now I have 5 reads, 0 writes, and 0 deletes, which is really weird. So I can't really answer your question better at how they charge me. Right now I know I'm on the free plan.
Yeah.
And I'm not being charged.
That's the only thing.
That's
the only thing about the serverless programming is the cost, like you said, because whether you go AWS, Azure, Firebase, I know it's more out there, but either way, all that stuff is going to cost you. I think Google. Firebase is Google, right?
Yeah, Google. Yep. Firebase
Yeah. So all that stuff is just the cost. That's the only thing right now. that'll get
Yeah, and
you.
the problem with the cost is that like it's not really clear. You know what I mean? Like
It's
you don't really
not
get an understanding of how the cost is until you get bit. Like until you end up paying like an astronomical amount of money for something, and you're like, I
every
didn't
month.
know.
Every month. Yup. Hidden. Yeah, I still get like I said, I still get charged by Amazon for stuff that I could have swore I deleted a long time ago. So yeah, that's the only downside. But other than that, I'm looking forward to getting more like into that stuff because it's cool to see how that crosses over with Firebase too. Because I haven't done anything with Firebase, so that's just cool to see how again AWS, Azure, Firebase, they all have similar tools. It's just a preference for what you like, what you want to use.
Yeah, and it's cool that you're using Azure, so because it's funny. Like some of the things like by watching you do today, I was sort of tripped up a little bit with the functions, not quite understanding what was going on. But as you were going through it, it all made more sense to me. Like, oh, okay, now I see what I was trying to do. So that's pretty cool as well. Like they're all pretty similar for the most part.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting more into that because I think that's definitely going to be, well, it's definitely a skill, I guess, going forward, like career wise, just knowing the cloud development stuff, but just like getting more into all the benefits that come with it. I think that's the cool part because, like you said, you can build a whole microservice that adds onto your application without really doing anything to your app. So that's really cool to me.
It's real simple. So I'm gonna leave the code right there for now. I don't want to bore the users, but like I said, I'll do is that I'll try to implement more. I definitely want to go through my code more. I think talking through code was helpful. So I'll figure out next week how I could do both, like how I could talk about what I'm doing as it relates to the things that I'm reading. Because I do read a lot of stuff that it crosses over regardless. So I'll do a better job of putting it in there.
Cool. Yeah, I hope to build on this discussion next week with like just more in-depth stuff with the Azure, the whole Azure suite, not just functions. This week, I just wanted to focus on that particular one, but I gotta get into Cosmos DB and stuff like that. So, and the design patterns for sure next week. Yep. I'm looking forward to it. So cool. I appreciate you guys. Anybody who joined us on the stream, thank you for being here. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe if this was helpful. La, do you have a second to debrief after we get off?
Yep. Hit me up when you're done.
All right, cool. All right, y'all. So I'll see y'all next week on the next stream. It's Darren with Darren the Dev, and I'll see y'all. Peace.